Hey you guys, it's Haley again here with the Catawba Riverkeeper. So this week we're just going to go ahead and dive right into our book. It is called A River Ran Wild by Lynne Cherry. Um, this week we're going to skip some of the things that we did before because this is a rather long book, but it's a good one. So like I said in the description, it is definitely a book of hope and it's a book full of reminders. So we're going to do our picture walk before we actually read the words, and then we're going to get started. So, A River Ran Wild. Okay, so there are wonderful pictures all in this book. So the title, this is actually the cover. The cover of a book has a map, and if you can't see, I'm not going to try and butcher, but there are tons of names like Massachusetts and Nipmucums. See, I don't want to butcher it, but there are lots of words on here that I do not speak in a language that I don't speak. But it's what's supposed to be America. It's supposed to represent America. And there's the ocean over here as well. So the date, it says the 1500s. So 7,000 years ago, Indian people came through the Nashua River Valley. Nashua Indian people of the Pennacock Confederacy settled along the Nashua River. First colonial settlements in New England in the 1600s. So from 1616 to 1617, there were smallpox epidemics in the colonies. And then 1628, Massachusetts Bay was founded. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 dates. And they all say there was a war. 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed. There were immigrants, the Indian Removal Act, and there were also paper manufacturers and mills, textiles, and lots of industrial development. And then in 1899, the largest dam on the Nashua River was constructed. So it was built to provide water to the area of Boston. So this is based on a true story. This book, we needed to give it context. So this is based on a true story of what happened in Boston. So we're going to do our picture walk now that we have a good frame of mind of where we're going. So all these beautiful pictures, I mean, they are just stunning. Wow. All right. Okay, beautiful pictures. We're in the woods. Still in the woods. All right, there's some people. And they are making things, fashioning things, cooking things, building things. All right. Now there are settlers on, there are settlers on the river carrying things. Oh, wow. Okay, those animals look very different than what we saw before. So there's chickens and ducks and turkeys and pigs and sheep and some horses. All right, so it looks like there's more cows over here, and there's different people. So there's two different people. They're dressed two very different styles that we can see. And oop, that looks like a dam. Okay, so they've built a dam. This beautiful picture. I'm loving these illustrations. All right, so if you can see over here, yep, there are factories and smokestacks, and it looks like the color of the river is changing. So it looks like there's watercolor, and then it's a red and kind of blue, and then maybe a little bit of green and a little bit of red down here, which I don't know. Oop, okay, that's the color of a river. That's really red. Okay. That's also a green color river. This sign says, hold your nose and Nashua River ahead. Ooh, that's not good. All right. And looks like there's people on the river in a canoe. So I like that. That looks a lot better that she's on the river. All right. And then this looks like it's the same river, but they're not so many colors. It looks like just this one color, which is great. So it looks like everything got better. All right, so this is another map like in the beginning. This one says New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Cape Cod, and this is in the 1900s. Okay, so we're starting off in the 1500s. I would definitely recommend you guys buy this book. So I know you can't really see the details, but there are actually pictures and words in the frame around almost every single one of these pictures. And I'm going to do my best to read you a couple each time, but it would take a very long time to read them all. All right, so page 1. Long ago, a river ran wild through a land of towering forest. Bears, moose, and herds of deer, hawks and owls all made their homes in the peaceful river valley. Geese paused on their long migration and rested on its banks. Beavers, turtles, and schools of fish swam in its clear waters. So there's our river. It's winding. That's called meandering when it winds like that. All right, so on this page, around the border of the words, there are all different kinds of animals that lived in this area. So on the page before, it said moose and the fish. So there's trout. There's a kingfisher. It's a bird, so I'm sure that he likes fish. There's a bass. There is an otter. There's a beaver, Canadian goose, white-tailed deer, a painted bunting, which is actually my favorite bird, and a black bear, a red-tailed hawk. We have that here too. A red-headed woodpecker. So those are all the animals that you can find that run wild in this area. So here are some people, and they are overlooking the river. One day, a group of native people searching for a place to settle came upon this river valley. From atop the highest mountain, known today as Mount Wachust, hopefully that's right, they saw the river nestled in its valley, a silver sliver in the sun. They came down from the mountains, and the river's edge they knelt to quench their thirst, and it was a clear water. Pebbles shone from the bottom. You could see all the way to the bottom in this river. Let us settle by this river, said the chief of the native people. He named the river Nashawa, River of the Pebbled Bottom. Makes sense to me. All right, so we talked about they're doing lots of things. So they're making things, they're cooking things, they're building things. And so around here are all different kinds of tools. There's pots, there's combs, there's purses, there's spoons, there's belts, baskets. Ooh, there's a zucchini. All kinds of stone implements and arrowheads and clay implements and bone as well. So they made lots of knives and tools out of bone as well. By the Nashua, Chief Weasal's people built a village, and they gathered cattails from the riverbanks to thatch their dwellings. In the river, they set fire to the clear brush from the forest floor. In these clearings, they planted corn and squash for eating, and they made arrows for hunting and canoes for river travel. When the Indians hunted in the forest or caught salmon in the river, they killed only what they needed for themselves, for food as well as clothing. And they asked all the forest creatures that they killed to please forgive them. The Nashua people saw a rhythm in their lives and in the seasons. The river, the land, and the forest provided all that they needed. All right, so this is a little bit different. This man has stones or maybe a bunch of just bags in his canoe. And around here are very different tools and implements. So we have pelts, which are skins from animals like beavers and muskrats and foxes. Glass beads, lots of metal things like metal pots, a tea kettle. There's also knives, there's guns, an axe, a jug, a mirror. So they're very different tools. The Nashua had lived for generations by the clear, clean, flowing river when one day a pale-skinned trader came with a boatload full of treasures. He brought skinny metal knives, colored beads, and cooking kettles, even a mirror and tools with boats and bolts of bright cloth. His wares seemed like magic. The Nashua welcomed him, traded furs, and soon a trading post was built. All right, so these are all the livestock, and around here are all the things that are just in this picture. So they have a rooster, a plow, a wagon. They have a candlestick maker. They have a rake. They have a hoe, a well bucket. In many years that followed, the settlers' village and others like it grew, and the Nashua became the Nashua. So they went from just the syllables of Nashua to one word, Nashua. The settlers worked together to clear land by cutting down the forests, which they thought was full of danger, wilderness that they would conquer. They hunted wolves and beavers, killing much more than they needed, and extra pelts were sent back to England in return for goods and money. The settlers built sawmills along the river, which the Nashua's current powered. They built dams to make them mill ponds, which are used to store the water that they drank. They cut down the towering forest and floated the tree trunks down the river. The logs were cut into lumber, which is used for building houses. So they found a way to use everything along the banks of the river, including the water itself. All right, and so here's a picture. We have two different people that are dressed very different in very different styles of clothing. Around here we have ospreys, raccoons, a tea kettle, a mill, a great blue heron. And this one says American Revolution, 1776. The settlers built fences for their pastures, plowed the fields, and planted crops. They called the land their land and told everyone not to trespass, told Indians not to trespass. Hunting land disappeared as the settlers cleared the forest. Indian fishing rights vanished as the settlers claimed the river. The Indian ways were disrupted and they began to fight the settlers. The wars raged for many years, but the Indians' bow and arrows were no match against things like gunpowder. And so the settlers' rifles drove the Indians from the land. Through 100 years of fighting, the Nashua had a healthy river. Sometimes was dammed for grist and sawmills, but still flowing wild and free. Muskrats, fish, and turtles still swam on its banks. Deer still came to drink from the river. Owls and raccoons and beavers all fed there. All right, this looks very different. That looks like a dam or a city. So around here, there's all different things that the Industrial Revolution brought. So we have young factory workers. The bicycle was invented. We have the steam engine, the Civil War, the first telephone, electricity, a clock, a typewriter, the Edison phonograph. All right, at the start of the new century, an industrial revolution came to Nashua's banks and waters. Many new machines were invented here, which spun threads of wool and cotton and other wove thread into cloth. Some machines turned wood into pulp and others made the pulp into paper. So leftover pulp and dyes and fibers were dumped straight into the Nashua River, whose swift flowing current washed away the waste. There's a beautiful picture again. So this is the picture of where the water turns colors. It's different. These were times of much excitement and progress as well as innovation. Factories along the Nashua River made new things with these new materials. So progress and innovation because they had new things and new materials. Telephones and radios and other things were made of plastic and chemicals and other plastics, but they had waste, and this waste was dumped into the river, and soon the Nashua's fish and wildlife grew sick from all the pollution. Okay, so now we know all those new innovations and new ideas and new inventions brought lots of waste from plastics and chemicals. Even making things even making metal things, there's waste products. So all those waste products were put directly into the river. The paper mill continued to pollute the Nashua waters. Every day for many decades, lots of pulp was dumped into the Nashua River, and it clogged up the river and it began to run much more slowly. As the pulp decomposed, bad smells welled up from the river. People who lived over the river smelled its stench and stayed far from it. Each day, as the mills dyed paper like red, green, blue, and yellow, the Nashua River would turn whatever color the paper was being dyed. Soon, no fish lived in this river. No birds stopped for their migration. No one could see pebbles shining through the murky water. The Nashua was dark and dirty. The Nashua was slowly dying. So remember, Nashua meant where you can see the pebbles, the pebbled waters. They couldn't see to the bottom any longer. All right, one night, Oneida, a descendant of Waniwa, who still lived by the Nashua, had a dream so vivid that he awoke in wide-eyed wonder. In his dream, Chief Waniwa's spirit returned to the river and saw what it was now, still and deadly. Chief Waniwa mourned for the Nashua, but where his tears fell upon the dirty waters, the waters were cleaned until the river once again flowed freely. The next morning, Oneida went to speak to his friend, Morin. And when they told him of his dream, I had this dream also, the same dream. The river with the pebbled bottom is the name Wasiwa gave it. And today no pebbles shine through the Nashua River's waters. Together they decided that something needed to be done. So in 1969, the plastic water jug was invented. That's what all these pictures are of things that were invented. Appliances, mixers, electric typewriter, man's first trip to the moon, pollution, first human in space. All right. Marin traveled to each town along the Nashua, and she spoke of the river's history and her vision to restore it. No longer do we have a river. It's stinky, and it smells like a sewer. But it wasn't always this way. People listened and imagined a sparkling river full of fish. They imagined pebbles shining through the clear waters. They signed petitions and they sent letters. They protested to politicians and they showed them the jars of their dirty water. They convinced the paper mills to build a plant to process the waste. They also persuaded the factories to stop dumping directly into the river. Finally, new laws were passed and factories stopped polluting. Yay! So it says, Senator Kennedy views the Nashua River, which that's super exciting. Petitions, stop pollution. Historic action, Nashua cleans up funds were approved. All right. Slowly, the Nashua's current began to clean its water. Year by year, the river carried away the dyes and the fibers to the ocean. Ooh. Maureen and Oneida thanked the people who had helped them clean up the river. Through the meadows and the towns and the cities, the Nashua again flows freely. Paper pulp no longer clogs the river. No chemicals longer foul it up, so it's no longer stinky. Now we walk along its banks and row upon its fragrant waters, in a good way, not a bad way. And they're not fragrant for stinky reasons. It smells good. We can set our boats in it and with its current drift downstream. We do that sometimes. Here in the Catawba River. Once again, the river runs wild through a towering forest greenway. Red-tailed hawks and barred owls live here. Geese pause for their long migrations and rest on its banks. Deer come to drink the river's water. We, too, have settled by the river. Pebbles shine up through the clear water. Nashua is what we call it, the river with a pebbled bottom. All right, the end. That was great. So if y'all have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out. Here's also another fun fact. In 1965, the U.S. Congress passed the Clean Water Act. Paper companies along the Nashua joined together to build a treatment plant, which is awesome. And then in 1970, the EPA was formed. Okay, cool. The end. Well, this was a great book, and like I said, I would definitely recommend y'all get this one. It's called A River Ran Wilde. It's a great one with beautiful pictures. You'll definitely be hearing more about this one. Okay, have a great day. Bye, y'all.